That's right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages. Welcome to the F4L Headquarters podcast. And this show, well, first and foremost, welcome to the F4L Headquarters podcast. So, today's show is a little different than most. This is a part 1 of 2. Right now we are celebrating moms, as this is part 1 of our Mother's Day special. And I am on location, believe it or not, as I am right now at a Panera Bread, believe it or not. Recording live. What else is new? So hopefully all goes well, and usually the people here are fantastic, usually, and the caffeine is fantastic as well. So special thanks to them for that. Anywho, so today's show, as I said, is dedicated to all the mothers out there who, all the mothers or mother-likes out there. Because this day and age, everyone has some type of woman who has done some type of mother-like thing. For some people, it's moms. Some people, it's their aunts, grandmothers, friends, and so forth. The word mother has many meanings for many people. And most people have a different person who they view as mothers. Some people have many people who they view as such. Some people don't have any. And it's a unfortunate thing when you have such a thing. But for the most part, it's always good to have that comfort that moms are out there. So, there's that. So, as I said, this is part 1 of 2. So, I'll record part of this now. I'll do some of this now, and I will do the rest later. So, first and foremost, how about a hand for all the mothers and the mother-likes out there, first and foremost? So, let's do that first. Absolutely. I don't think that a lot of people understand truly what that is. And I also think that a lot of times people take them for granted, for the most part. Take it from someone who doesn't have one. There are many times in my adult life, there are many times when I find myself wishing that I had my mom with me now. Moments with my kids, moments with other things in life. And I'm brought back to the times with my mom and things of that nature, and I'm reminded of her on a regular basis. So there is that element, but then there's the sense of everyone knows that things are inevitable, and you never know what tomorrow brings. And I guess that's kind of the cautionary tale here, ain't it? The fact that we never know what tomorrow brings. So always important to honor those that we consider to be our moms or mom-like type people when we have them. Because literally, you never know what tomorrow brings. Me, for example, I put my mother on a bus to go home, and I saw her one day, and 24 hours later, she was taken from the world. So, you never know what tomorrow brings. And the only saving grace is the fact that I got to talk to my mother the morning that she was hit, and and it was a joyful conversation. She understood that, that weekend I had come hard down on her for her smoking, and that was out of a place of love, not of annoyances or anything. And she understood that, and, one of the good things is when the conversation was over, we both said we loved each other, and at least I know that she knew that when she met her end, unfortunately. So, the moral of that story is just to remember that you're not guaranteed tomorrow. I know a lot of times, and I'm included in this, way back beforehand, you get your phone calls from our moms at the most randomest times. And a lot of the times we'll see, mom's name come up on our caller ID, and then you debate, well, do I have time to talk to mom right now? Or should I call her back later? And I always urge you guys to, when you're in the opportunity to call, and your mom does call you, I think it's probably a good idea to pick up the phone, because there are plenty of times today that I would love to just have a chance to say hello to my mom and get her 2 cents and have her give me her original opinion on various things. So there's that. So let's get that elephant out of the room real quick. And first and foremost. So there's that. But let's talk about the positive sides of moms and stuff like that while we tell funny stories and things that make our moms. Me, for example, when it comes to defining my mother, quite the character is how most people would describe her. She was someone who didn't often listen to authority. She was also very confrontational, very stubborn, much like somebody else that we know. And she was also the life of the party, and she also, still was loyal to people even if they weren't as loyal to her towards the end, which is unfortunate, but that kind of sometimes happens. So, when it comes to my mom, for example, one of the funniest parts about it would be she, at a young age, because of her early smoking at a young age, she came down with severe emphysema towards her end there. And the thing to remember is my mom was only 40 when she died. And she was confined to a wheelchair by 40 because of her emphysema. She couldn't walk she couldn't walk a few inches without, gasping for air, and was like bleeding through a cocktail straw. And she was a very thin woman. She wasn't a heavy-set woman or anything. She was very thin in stature, and she was always not very big. So it wasn't like it was all weight or anything like that. It was just the years and years and years of smoking. And even towards the end, she smoked all the way up until the time she was gone. And, sometimes you can't break those habits. And despite how many times you'd want to, and despite how people like me who don't smoke, for us, it's kind of easy to kind of realize, we don't need to do this right now. And it's easy for us to say, why do you have to continue to smoke? The doctor told me you have 2 hours to live or a couple days to live, and you're not going to get better, but you can prolong your life if you quit. People like me would, just say, well, just quit it and be around. But people who are, into that, and people who can't break out of those habits, unfortunately, they just, their attitude about it is, I'm going to die happy. So, or it's too late for me now, as a lot of them looked at it. However, I say that, but with her, she didn't let a lot of that keep her from doing anything or having her life that she had. So that's the difference between her and a lot of other people. For example, it was a very common occurrence that while if I was to tell my mother that I was going to a concert or some type of activity, that my mother would often want to tag along, despite who the concert was. And then I'd have to give my mother the old hard time. I'd say, you don't know who such and such is, and then she'll rattle off like 6 songs and then make me, realize that maybe she does know some of these people. Because when it came to music, my mother was into the music scene. She loved music in general. And it was way over the place, her music taste. So my mother, one of her favorites was Madonna. But she'd have Madonna, then she'd have like the Beatles and things of that nature. But then she'd, go all the way to the right turn and go into Metallica and Slipknot and Limp Bizkit and things like that, which most people in her age demographic were not into those types of things. But she lived those things, and she actually enjoyed those things. I actually took her, I can't believe I did this, I took her to a Metallica concert. Metallica, and I think it was Metallica and Godsmack I took her to see, because if I didn't, I would never hear the end of it. So she didn't let that stop her, the wheelchair, and the fact that she couldn't breathe, really. As I said, this is part 1 of 2. I'm only going to do a little bit now, and I'm going to, a little bit later, I've been working on a poem that I'm going to be doing later, and a couple other things for you guys that will be a little bit more not out in public and so forth. And in case you're wondering why I'm doing it here in Panera Bread, is because my mother loved coffee, and she also loves socialization. And also, it's a beautiful day out. So combine the three, my mother would not be inside. She would be outside living life and probably at a coffee shop, much like now, and being surrounded by her friends, much like right now I'm by myself here, but that's kind of how that works. And, what's awesome is that, with my own mother, it's one thing, but my wife is also an equally awesome human being and an awesome mother. Oftentimes my wife doesn't get the credit that she should. From us, we give her all the credit in the world, but my wife, due to the fact that she grew up kind of like mine, where everyone was kind of very critical, I have nothing but admiration for my wife. She is a strong woman. She's a tough woman, in more ways than one, and she's a great mom, ultimately. And if I'm being honest, if she wasn't a great mom, I probably wouldn't be with her. We have 2 kids together who are awesome. We say kids in there. And every year they get older. And, whenever we talk about Mother's Day and birthdays and things of that nature, it's always the women sometimes who kind of take those things more to heart. Or the moms take it harder than the father sometimes. But dads, like me, for example, I am always blown away at how old my kids are getting and how old I am. Because each time they get older, I feel older. But my wife, on the other hand, always looks at them as those little kids in diapers that kids grow. And moms have a hard time sometimes seeing past that. And that's kind of the mom, that's kind of the mom mentality, and that's kind of the mom views of things. So I think I'm only going to go about 20 minutes right now for you guys. And we'll be back later, as I said. So I'm just waiting to get to that point. But I did want to share that and letting you guys know that my wife is an awesome mom. My kids have, great... I can't toot my own horn. I'm pretty decent myself. But we make a good pair. I wouldn't be able to do anything that I was with... the kids wouldn't be where they were if they didn't have both of us. My wife tends to be more of the disciplinary person. I'm more of the talker. But we both want our kids to have the best opportunities that they can have. We both agree upon that. And opportunities we didn't necessarily have growing up. We like to make sure that they get those opportunities, even if we weren't. So that's kind of where we're at with that. So I am going to cut this a little bit short today. For this part, I am going to be back a little later on with part 2 of this episode, as we'll do shout-outs and more stories and the poem that I wrote for this year's Mother's Day. So again, to all those mothers out there and all the mother likes, and I'm talking about the aunts, the uncles, the aunts, the grandmothers, the mom's best friends, whoever it is who is raising currently kids today, the foster parents, the foster mothers, the adopted mothers. Because remember, just because you don't have to necessarily be blood to be family, and as long as you have someone looking after you and someone looking out for you like that, you're blessed to have that. So may all your dreams come true, and I will be back with you guys later. Peace, everybody.